shooters and reloaders and Three Circles passengers and members out there, it's Fortune Cookie 45LC coming to you from the Hot Lead Zone Express. And this is a Rumble video, of course, and I'd like to welcome all of the reloaders and shooters that came over to Rumble from YouTube. And there aren't too many of you yet, but quite a few. And I'm hoping that a lot of those 66,000 subscribers that we have over there on YouTube will come over to Rumble. And by all means, follow this channel, Fortune Cookie 45LC, the Hot Lead Zone. Please follow that on Rumble, because I need to kind of get going on Rumble. So anyway, our video today is on crimps. Well, you might wonder, why are we doing this video on crimps? I mean, it's kind of an esoteric topic, right? Not really. Because what you're looking at is when we look at all these videos on reloading, and you see the reloads that are out there, including my own, you see some crimps that have some questionable factors to them. And you out there and myself, we're all on the same boat. We know what a good crimp is. When we see a good crimp, we know it's good. We see a crimp that's bad or not quite as good, we know right away by looking at it. But we may not know exactly what we're looking at. Let's look at what we really like, and that is factory crimps. In fact, when Lee named their dye the factory crimp dye, it's just on that same idea, is that we kind of hold factory crimps as our standard, and we want factory quality crimps. And here's what we're looking at when we have factory crimps. Let's look at lead bullets first, cast bullets, and factory, the factory standard. Well, there's no better round to get into this discussion of crimps than the 38 Special, because ever since the round was introduced in 1898, 1899, the cartridge was accepted by law enforcement all the way up into the 70s, the 1970s. So for a run of 70 years, this was the law enforcement cartridge. And so the ammunition that was made for all the law enforcement agencies across the country, that's on the city, the state, the federal, all used the 38 Special. So the ammunition was very competitive, and the ammunition had to be accepted, not just for the round itself, but the individual ammunition. So you take this Remington UMC right here on the end. It had the two crimping cannelures, along with the roll crimp here. So the law enforcement officers would look at this round and say, this is what I want to carry, because of the nickel case, so that it was durable in the leather belts and the bullet loops that the cops used. And the crimp was excellently done. Why do we like this crimp? Well, look at the positioning of the case mouth. It's right over the crimping groove, so you don't see an open groove. You don't see an open groove from this view. If you tip it like this, you'll see that the case is right against the bullet. As you see, it's bent in there. Perfect for the standard velocity loadings and even the plus Ps that came along later. And then you see the Peters round, second from the left, is the same as the Remington round, except it's got one less crimping cannelure. Then Winchester came along and did the same kind of crimp You see, they're perfectly placed into the crimping groove, and the case mouth is fully engaged into the groove. Federal had its version, and you see the subtle crimping cantilever in the case body. These are all nickel cases for maximum durability for the cops. And then the FBI load, which is 158 grain semi-wad cutter hollow point plus P load. You see that crimp there? Same kind of thing. Fully engages the crimping groove. So the shapes of these crimps are all perfect for the 38 caliber special. And that's what the cops appreciated. Now, whatever the cops like to use, then the civilian shooters would also want the same thing. This was a massively competitive market for the better part of 70 years. Now, you can bet that if the crimp did not fully engage the crimping groove, or if you look from an above direction, you saw a gap in there. These are some of the problems that we see in some of our reloads today. We don't quite fully engage the crimping groove. And when you see that, you don't like it. You don't know what you don't like, but you know you don't like it. This we like. Notice when I tip it at this angle here, you don't see any discrepancy in that crimp. Now we look at some of our reloads with our cast lead bullets, and you'll see that these four, we probably like these. Let's find out why we like them. Notice that, again, the engagement into the crimping groove is such that the bullets cannot be driven further into the cases because the case mouth is in the top of the crimping groove. See how the configuration is bent in? So that it resists any bullet movement into the case. Now the configuration is such that this case is actually butted up against the bottom of the crimping groove where the curve is on the case, so that these rounds will not back out of the brass either. So the bullets aren't going to move in, they won't move out. And that's what we want. And this 45 Colt, same thing. You'll see that there is no gap. The case mouth is firmly against the bullet. And here are some good examples of auto pistol rounds with taper crimps that satisfy our 4 criteria. Now, the neck tension is very important with these also to go along with the taper crimps. Now, with our discussion, can you spot the bad one? The one that has a bad crimp? If you look very carefully, the one in the middle so that we can spot the bad crimp right away. And I must say that we can all be guilty of this problem at times. Now we need to discuss the crimps on our jacketed bullets, and all these are factory rounds. When it comes to the auto pistol rounds, the taper crimp is the same idea as with our lead bullets, but not so with our jacketed. Because with a jacketed bullet, the rounds that have the roll crimps for revolvers or single shots are roll crimps. And a cantilever is provided in the jacketed bullet for the roll crimp to engage. Now, the round on the left is a U.S. military 38 special used by the U.S. Air Force, and this is a military round. Notice of the case mouth is right on the halfway point of the cantilever, and that allows, as the case mouth is bent into the cantilever, and notice the shape of the crimp. That's perfect. Same thing with the second and third. Notice that we're at least on the halfway point of the cantilure, maybe a little bit into the top half of the cantilure, and that allows us to get a good configuration of the crimp into that groove. The geometry is enabled to get into that cantilure and get a nice shape for the crimp. Now, if we try and crimp into the lower half of the cantilure, then we cannot get the good bend. Notice that on these two, which are Federal Hydra shocks, the crimp is not in the top half of the cantilure. It's actually in the bottom half. Same thing with this PMC case, this 44 Special. Those are too close to the bottom part of the cantilure, which makes it very difficult for the shape and configuration of the case mouth to bend in there properly. You almost don't even see a bend here, and you see only a slight bend there compared to the nice bend in these over here. So even on factory rounds, sometimes they don't crimp exactly where it's optimum. So I really don't like the crimps on these factory rounds over here. They could have been better. Now, case in point, these are reloads, and what you see is the round on the right is on the bottom half of the cantilure, and you see it's very difficult for that configuration, that geometry of the crimp, to look proper. You're almost deforming the bullet if you try and get that case mouth to bend into the cantilure. However, on these 454 Casull rounds, if you target the top part of the crimping groove, or the cantilure, if you target the top part of the cantilure, you'll get a much better shaped crimp. So both of these have very nice architecture, configuration, no damage to the case. So certainly if I had gone ahead and seated this a little deeper, then we'd have a good shape crimp there as well. So we don't like this one, but we like these two. And notice the straight wall. We really can't get that case mouth into the cantilure properly. So this video is a good reminder for all of us to mind the 4 criteria for good crimps. And the 4, of course, are linked together, but they overlap a bit, but yet each one of these stands on its own. So take care, and good crimps all of you out there. Fortune Cookie 45 LC. See you in the next Rumble.